What they don't tell you when buying your first motorcycle.
I'm surprised more people aren't talking about this. The first one being negotiation power. There's a Kelley Blue Book for motorcycles. I would consider myself to have pretty much no negotiation skills, but Kelley Blue Book will give you a price, trade-in value, and also typical listings price for what your bike at what year, an estimate of what it would cost. This has been my best tool whenever I've sold a vehicle privately at a dealership. If I've just said, I think I just sell it myself and I think this is how much I can get for it. That alone raised my trade-in value. Granted, that was for my car and not my bike. My bike, I was just like, take it, I don't even want it anymore, but still a good principle. The next is how important practice is. I've been riding for 8 years, and I think I'm a pretty good example of someone who's taken dozens of classes, but I don't feel like I actually got skilled until I started practicing on my own this year, after 8 years of riding. Granted, you don't need to do almost 10,000 U-turns as I've done this year throughout all my U-turn challenges. Some instructors like Jerry Palladino would say, you just need to practice at least once a week to keep those slow speed skills sharp. Even just in a parking lot for 10 to 15 minutes can go a really long way. The next thing no one told me about riding is it is much more technical than you actually think. Anyone can go fast in a straight line, but any slow speed skills, tight turns, and high speed curves, also anything with loose traction like on gravel, dirt, all these things are actually very technical. And some people have a lot of embarrassing moments. So that gets into another really important point that I also didn't know when I first started riding. The training does not stop at that first entry-level course. I think in some other countries, the certification course is a lot more extensive than here in the US, but here in the US, what you get in that basic rider course is really not enough to keep you very skilled at slow speed skills, especially if you're a shorter rider, and definitely does not include techniques for high speed curves, like if you're going to be riding in the mountains. MSF offers a whole bunch of variety of courses after that entry level course. There's also all different kinds of courses that you can translate even if you don't ride that kind of riding. For instance, a lot of short rider tricks you don't learn in the entry-level MSF course. You might learn that in adventure riding courses or dirt bike courses. Slow speed skill courses built off of motor police curriculum, like Ride Like a Pro, that gives you so much more than just passing U-turn for a certification course. It makes slow speed skills fun and cool, as long as you practice after the course. Don't ask me how I know. Probably a really good tip. It was actually only one person that told me this, and I know who it was. It was my first MSF instructor, Peter, and he suggested, since I came into riding knowing absolutely nothing about bikes and knowing nobody who rode, having no clue if I was going to go sport bike or cruiser, and at the time that was actually all I knew. I had no idea there was also dual sport riding, never even thought about dirt bikes, mini bikes, adventure bikes. But he suggested I just go and sit on as many bikes as possible. So for a few months, that's all I did. I went to every dealership within like a 50-mile radius and just sat on a lot of bikes. And I watched a ton of YouTube videos, a ton of bike reviews, basically get to know bikes. But sitting on a bunch of bikes just helped me, one, get excited, but also see what I liked. And granted, that did end up changing. I started off of cruisers, went to naked sport bikes, and now I own an adventure bike, but I love riding Harley baggers too. So it can definitely change, and that's not a big deal. Okay, this is one that really gets me because it is such a blatant lie. And I can't believe how many people are still preaching this. And this is the reason why I almost quit riding my second year of riding, because I didn't know what I didn't know. And this is what so many instructors will tell you when you first start riding. And that's that you need to flat foot a bike in order to start riding. My thinking was anything that sits a little bit taller, I just can't ride. And once you go past a 650cc one-cylinder cruiser, you don't have a whole lot of options. I didn't know that there were other tricks. If I had any dirt bike experience, I may have known this, but I didn't know that there were very simple techniques to handle taller bikes. So the second bike I bought was a Triumph Bonneville. I was not used to being slightly tiptoed on a bike. So it seemed like any time I got on my bike, I either dropped it or almost dropped it. I barely rode it that whole year, and I almost quit riding until a subscriber told me about Jocelyn Snow. She is 5'1.5", rides a GS 1250 that she can't even touch her feet on the ground, and she rides that better than anyone I see ride almost any bike. So I adopted some short rider tricks that she teaches on just my naked sport bike. And eventually later, I learned some short rider tricks I could apply to big baggers as well. So what I think should be said instead of you need to flat foot a bike is when you first start riding, it's easier to get a bike you can flat foot. But there are some very simple tricks if you ever decide to get a taller bike. And they don't take long to learn at all. That way you won't be limited if you want to ride dirt, if you want to ride adventure bikes, or if you want to do track days and you want to bump up in classes. Some organizations don't allow lowered bikes on the track if you're in an intermediate or above level. If you're just going to be using your bike for commuting and maybe some light weekend rides, you can definitely get away with a lowered bike or a bike that you just flat foot your whole riding career, I think. But for me, since this is my job, I want to be able to ride as many bikes as possible, try as many different types of riding as possible, and I don't want to be limited by my size. And some people get really upset when I call myself a short rider. I'm 5'3.75" inches tall, so I know it's not necessarily short for a woman, but with 75% of riders in the US being male, that is short for the average rider. Because a 5'4" dude, that's a short dude, and you're gonna need my tricks. Another important thing that nobody told me about, that I learned by making my own grave mistakes, was how important just reading your manual is. If you get a new bike, just make that manual your nighttime reading. And it's kind of fun getting to know your bike like that, especially if it's cold or dark out or you're tired, but you still want to do something bike related. Read your manual, get to know that bike you just bought. Okay, we're all guilty of this. Most of us don't do T-clocks every day like the MSF course teaches, but it is very important to at least check through as often as you can. Think of it. I've been posting videos on YouTube about motorcycles since the day I got my first bike. So you're gonna see me do a lot of dumb beginner stuff back there. I did not do T-clocks and I did not check anything. After riding my very first bike for about a year, taking it up to the North Shore Mountain 12 times, taking it through the slow speed courses, I never checked my oil levels. And one day I was riding on the highway, the engine just seized and it was smoking. The bike was dead. I had been riding it with no oil. It was unsalvageable. Sold it for parts, but now I am very on top of checking those levels on my bike. I do very little maintenance on my own bike, pretty much just cleaning and lubing my own chain, because I want to make sure it is done perfectly by someone who does it a lot more often with more training than I do. So I just take it to the dealership for pretty much everything else. And this one backtracks a little bit, where if you listen to me when I told you that you can just keep on taking courses, that can also give you a discount on your insurance. A lot of insurances will accept a certificate for a riding course at least once a year, and only one. You can't layer discounts, I've tried. They'll give you some money off. I've had Dairyland for years. They're not a sponsor of this video. I'm really glad they're not a sponsor for this video because their legal team can't stop me for telling you this. If you have Geico, your quotes are probably trash. Just about everyone I know who has Geico motorcycle insurance is paying ridiculous. I did so much shopping around and I found that Dairyland quoted me less than even Progressive, and I had them for a long time because they were the lowest of the ones that I knew of. I'm gonna link them down below so you can get a free quote and just compare it to your current insurance. But if you don't have your motorcycle insurance bundled with anything else, which may be the cheapest on top of a certificate applied, then give them a shot. Once you finally get to take home those 2 or 3 wheels, check out 10 things no one tells you about riding next, right over here.